How you going? Welcome back to the Bullshit Machine podcast. I'm actually super excited about this episode because I've got this wonderful gentleman, Jeff Lang, on the show. And one of the incredible things about Jeff, I've known Jeff for about a year, and he's the MD, CEO and founder of a company called TITOMIC. And he also, in the past, he was a world-class skater. He was in the X Games, snowboarder, all this cool shit. And one of the things I love about Jeff is that he's got these. He's got, like, you know, he's a founder of a company. He's built this company from nothing to this dynamic company. But I really feel that Jeff, it's almost like this is just a surface thing for him to really express who he really is to the world, and really his ultimate intention since I've known him is to really create a massive shift in the world. And the reason I want to get him on the Bullshit Machine is, if there's one man I know that calls out bullshit, it's this man here. So welcome, Jeff. How are you, mate?
Great, Tommy. Thanks for having us on your show.
Absolute pleasure. So, dude, we've worked quite closely together for the last year or so.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just hear your journey and how you sort of, how do you go from the X Games and rolling down, skateboarding and snowboarding and stuff to starting a additive manufacturing company?
I suppose it's a good question. Look, really, I suppose it's all my life. Ever since a little kid, I've explored my potential. Let's put it that way. And obviously, I grew up as a creative child. I can mid-50s now, but growing up in the 70s and 80s with creativity wasn't probably the best generation to grow up with. It got completely suppressed at school. I was always told, you're not allowed to be creative, you've got to be academic, and every measurement of significance of intelligence in other areas was all around academia. And so I sort of gravitated towards being sort of like the sports jock a little bit more, and put all my efforts into the arts and also into sport as well. So I was good at sport, and I found a lot more congruence in that as far as, excelling at something and being something significant. And obviously, but I never forgot the creativity side of it and the roots. And obviously my father was quite creative. He was an artist, ran a large signwriting business in Australia, and he went on also to become a mayor of Melbourne, one of the biggest suburbs. So my family's always had this sort of link back to the creative areas and sort of arts and stuff, but also a bit of leadership skills in there as well. So it's a interesting sort of angle. So I suppose from my side, I've just explored that all my life. Never one to be static. In other words, I explore something, take it through to its highest level. I get bored really quickly, right? And then I just move on to the next challenge. So it's been my life story. It's probably, I don't really look at things as an achievement level. It's just I get bored and want to just explore life. I think we have a great opportunity in life to explore experiences, and so I don't hold back on that. And I suppose that one thing that I've learned over the years, how to navigate through fear, how to navigate through those insecurities that we all have that stop us actually exploring things in life.
Yeah. And on that, I mean, some of the cool stuff I've seen you do within this company is like, for example, with Jeff, the things that I've noticed is that Jeff gets an idea, right? Or you get an idea, and everyone around you, it's almost like when you get creative, it's like the world around you fucking blows up.
Yeah.
and then every time you find a way to get through the fear, and you find a way to navigate yourself through, I guess, all the darkness to actually bring what your creativity wanted to bring into the world. So how do you do it?
Oh, look, it's actually been the best way to put it. It's like a mission, right? I've had to go through a huge amount of battle in life to get to that point. So it's not like, I just got served up this and got lucky. I've had to work my fucking butt off to get to this point. And one of the things I've had to navigate through is just like all these inconsistencies in society. We go to school, we're taught, you study this, you do that, you're going to end up this. But as we grow up and become adults, we realise a lot of the system's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
The system indoctrinates us into a particular belief or system process. So I've never been one to follow process. I've always been a rebel. Got expelled from a couple of schools when I was younger.
Did you?
For being a bit mischievous and causing as much shit as I could. But the reality is I've never succumbed to, let's call it, what we're meant to be indoctrinated to. And so how I've sort of navigated through that as far as the ideas is understanding what are all the roadblocks in life, right? So, and I've had a fair few roadblocks, whether it be traumatic personal experiences and just back to the wall financially, having a young family, no money, where's the next money going to come in for food, even at that level of being bad. But I suppose what I've learned over the years is just how to navigate through those bits, like don't lose sight of what you're aiming at, because everyone has ideas. Humans by nature, we're creators, right? But most people don't consider themselves being creative. And I suppose in my generation, it was more, if you were creative, you're seen as, go and smoke a few bongs, have a joint and do a painting, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't equate to having a professional career or anything around creativity. And I suppose that even got to the point where we relabel creativity as being innovation. Now, I love innovation and I love wordsmithing. So if you look at innovation, it just means innovation. You're just connecting dots. You're moving something from here, repackaging it, moving over here and pretending it's being creative. It's not. It's just you've got the corporate world pretending they're creative by using innovation, where real creativity is how the human mind thinks and shapes things that haven't been done before, and we get ideas. But human nature is, as soon as we get an idea, we have to institute insecurities and fears around that idea. So there's a great idea, I can see this is going to happen, but then you think, but what if such and such thinks, I don't have the money to do this. There's always an excuse as to why we can't generate that creativity. And what I've learned over the years is just that whether our own personal roadblocks or roadblocks in the environment you find yourself in, whether it be your job or your career or if you're running your own business, these roadblocks are only nothing more than concepts, that there are illusions in our mind. And because they're illusions, the interesting thing, when those illusions actually take control of us, they stop us living what our dreams are. They stop us progressing our creative ability. And so we then start to live as a delusion of what our real potential is. So most people have these creative nuances, but unfortunately the bulk, let's call it the congruence of humanity, are living in so much fear that collectively we generate fear at such a high level that most things in society and most values that we're indoctrinated into and belief systems are all fear-based. And when we step out of that fear base, all of a sudden there's this beautiful world to actually entertain, and it gives us this huge opportunity to explore. Now, I still suffer the same as everyone else. I still get a new idea, and I have all these thoughts that come into my head and go, yeah, you can't do that. What ifs, right? But I've learned over the years just how to suppress them, and probably more, because I've done some really deep internal work on that bit, I've actually started to understand nearly in a way of what is my own thoughts and what are external influences that affect my thoughts.
Yeah. So on that, like in terms of the external influences, what do you mean? Like, because it's interesting from what you said. Do you actually suppress the fear-based thoughts, or is it something that you acknowledge and then sort of move away from it, or is it really suppressing it, or is it, I don't know, I'm just...
Oh no, it's a good question, and it's something I've been working on myself more recently around that one. And when I write, I love getting on Facebook and heckling people and triggering them, and then I come back and try to slap them as hard as I can with reality check. But, I think what you're talking about is what we refer to as cognitive dissonance, when the brain just simply cannot compute a situation. So I'm very mindful of it as far as understanding, is my mind just shutting down because I want to have to deal with something? And it's like that ostrich mentality, bury your head in the sand. I don't want to see what's around me, so I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and pretend it's not there when it's actually still there. Now that's really cognitive dissonance. Now, what I try to do is navigate away from that and really understand how my thinking goes in what we call my cognition, or my cognitive ability, which is, how do you use the entirety of everything at your disposal? In other words, if I go deep into our existential existence, as far as understanding how our soul, how our spirit, and our physical elements of our brain all work cohesively together. Now, when we start understanding we have all these influential elements that make up ourselves, then you can start to entertain really which is the strongest thoughts, which are your most insecure thoughts. So I've reached the point now where I believe those thoughts I have, rather than using cognitive dissonance and just dispelling them, I've actually got to a point to understand that there's sort of noise in the background, that noise being, they're not coming from my cognition. It's my interrelationship, or like I like to refer to as my energy coalescing with the greater unity of the universe, right? So in other words, that coalescing element also generating thoughts into me, but they're not necessarily my thoughts. They're influential thoughts. But so I see them for what they are, and I rationalise them and go, that doesn't serve my purpose. So I discount them. But it's not like I'm just blocking them. I do take a cognitive approach to each one, realise it and understand it, but then think, no, this is not from me. I'm parking that. Basically, you can fuck off. And I'll just do what I want to do.
And on your purpose, because a lot of people think that they have to be really specific in their purpose before they actually go for it. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear in terms of what your maybe if you want to share what your purpose is, but more about whether you think you have to get super specific or whether that specificity actually limits what you're here to do, or how broad do you go with your purpose?
Yeah, that's another good question, Tommy.
Fuck you, Tommy.
No, but look, it took me a long time to do that. I was always trying to navigate through, let's call it the chaos of life or the complexity of being human, right? And I was trying to navigate through that and find some sort of content to what I was trying to do and more context to my life. Like, what was my purpose in life? And look, from when I was 20, I explored all those avenues. I ended up going into, nowadays there's all these terms like woke community on that, but all my life I've sort of explored this alternative sort of aspect of life, trying to understand the deeper virtues of what it means to live and what it means to be human. And one thing, look, I got sucked in that whole vortex of the spirituality and soulfulness and all this. But more recently, I tend to call it more like burping butterflies and farting rainbows, right? Because you only have to look at something like COVID-19 when all these people who are going to save the world and all this, where are they all right now? They've all pulled their heads in isolation and going, it's all too hard. So what sort of I realised in life is it took me a long time, and I went through what they call that the dark night of the soul. I went through several of those situations where I was actually at breaking point, just trying to understand what my purpose in life, and it didn't matter which way I turned, there was some roadblock or someone trying to cut me down, and I think Australians are really good at tall poppy syndrome. Let's be fucking real here. You achieve anything, everyone wants to cut you down.
100%.
And so I've always been aware of that and understand a lot of that's fear-driven, but it's also a bit of our culture in Australia. And like, my work here at TITOMIC, we all hang shit on each other and have fun doing it. But I suppose my real context of what we're doing here, I searched to what was a single driving point behind what drove me in life to what was my purpose, what is my destination, and what was I trying to achieve. And everywhere I looked outwards, I couldn't find any connection. So I did a lot of, like meditation, trying to understand those connections to different areas. And through that, I sort of started to think about, the bigger picture outside of this planet and looking at the universe and how everything's interconnected. And I think, okay, it's all great. We talk about these things from different cultures and, as far as how we link into source in the universe and all these bits. But then I thought, okay, I'm a creator. So what's the greatest level of creation you can go to? And obviously, whatever you want to talk about it, people have their religious beliefs or cultural beliefs, indigenous cultures even have their beliefs, but what is the singularity of what I call omnipotency? Was there a single intelligent aspect that created the universe, created this world and all these bits? So when you consider that and you think, okay, we have this concept of a God or a prime creator, but what was the purpose of that essence? Was to create infinite potential, infinite opportunity to keep exploring itself, getting bigger and deeper and deeper. So through understanding that, I just kept going deeper into that rabbit warren. And it is a rabbit warren. Once you go down there, you can spend the rest of your life and just be consumed exploring chaos and the complexity of how everything interconnects. But I reached this sort of state thinking, is there a simpler approach to that, right? Instead of looking at the complexity, how can I look at it with a simple aspect? So what I actually ended up coming to was understanding, if I look at creation from the highest possible level, what is the simplest aspect I can bring that complexity down into something that could be one or two words? And that was a realization of what I call intent. By having a singularity in your intent on something, and if you're steadfast in that intent, in other words, if you can stand in a conviction of what that intent is, that can override all the noise and everything else in life, and that becomes your singular purpose in life is attached to that singular intent. And so for me, after some deep exploration and trying to understand that bit, I came to this sort of virtue to me that meant a lot was, how do I be the best human being I can be, right? And it sounds very simple and very fluffy in one aspect, but really anyone that can tell me a higher level of simplicity that encompasses so much nobility in empathy, creativity, and other areas. I'm yet to find anyone that can actually correct me on that point, that the single intent of a human being just being the best you can in your nobility. To me, I can't see any greater intent to that. And that also links really strongly into creation and creativity as well. And then a bit more segue, I found it 2 or 3 years ago, I think masculinity was getting really attacked.
Yeah.
I think we've all grown up with what we call that patriarchal concept in life, as far as we only know what our parents taught us. And because of that, we tend to get indoctrinated in this concept. You find a partner, you maybe have kids, and you buy a house and you live happily ever after. But does it bring joy to humans? No, it doesn't. Right? So we're constantly, we get indoctrinated into these processes, but they don't bring us happiness, they don't bring us joy. Now, for me personally, I feel by being the best human being I can, it plays into my empathy, it plays into my creativity, and I take great joy out of creating things that actually bring sustenance to humanity, creates better resource management in the future. So I'm really about how do I improve humanity into the future? How do I create a pathway or be a bit of a way shower to show where some leadership as far as what people should be focused on? And so to me, it's that intent about just purely being noble human beings. And because of the masculinity end up in this concept in society about all men were toxic until proven otherwise, I thought that was a bit tough, right? So I also bought in this concept of being the best man I could be, and representative for both men and women as well. So I suppose that's what I've ended up with, is just the singularity of that intent. And what I've learned over the years, as I apply my creativity to different things, there's no concept whether I'm doing the right thing or not. It's already inbred into every aspect of my creativity I'm doing. That intent is already existing there.
Yeah. Wow. I love it, man. That's, you know, it's so cool because with you, what I get with you, right, is that when you talk, it's almost like it's like you're teaching yourself as you talk. So you don't plan what you're going to say, but as the words come out of you, it's like you're reteaching yourself of how to come back to who you really are, you know. Yeah. And so it's really cool to see, man, because I look at someone like you, Jeff, and I go, fucking hell, this guy's so intelligent, and it's like, and from where I look at the world, because I don't know what it's like to have a mind like yours. Like, first off, do you see yourself as normal? and the second question, which might lead into it, is do you see how do you look at the world and go, you fucking dumb shits?
You asked some tricky questions there, Tommy. Look, one thing, obviously I'm doing a lot of sport over the years. Yeah. That gives me a really competitive nature. So there's an ego there, right?
Yeah.
My probably is more a frustration than a superiority complex.
Yeah.
I see things very clearly. In other words, I link dots together and I'll be with a group, as you've seen here sometimes at work. I go, well, can't you fucking see it? It's all so simple. It's just boom, 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 boom. And I have a room full of people staring at me because they don't get what I'm talking about. And that comes back to what I call one of the problems associated with human communication, right? We're only as good as what we communicate out with, and we're so dependent upon words as our language, right, that communicate what we do. We also have some body language that works in communication, but really our communication is centred around language, which with the spoken word or written word. Now, both these can be very easily distorted and also be hijacked. Now, I don't want to go too deep into that aspect as far as how word magic works and stuff like that. But the reality is you sort of, words have an intent as well. When I talked about what I'm trying to search for in my intent, well, everything has an intent. Anything that's energy has intent associated with it. So every word that we know has an intent to it. Every spoken word, there's an intent behind what the person's drawing. So we're dealing with this chaos of energy and this how it all coalesces with each other, and you're really just dealing with complete and utter chaos. So when I look at that bit, I look at people in a different light. If I just play into my pure ego being Jeff, I get pissed off with people. I think, and it's not that I have a smugness or superiority complex. I just get frustrated frustrated that they can't see what I can see. But my mind's been created as far as my perception, how it wants to be. So when I look at something with cognition, it's very simple to me, but it might be extremely complex to someone else. So I don't berate those people for not seeing what I see. I just, in essence, try to work with them and try to find ways I can improve that person on how they, not to see how I see things, but how they can form what I call a cohesive approach as far as how do we get to a point where we're communicating the same thing, seeing the same things, and every individual will have their own nuances, their own way of exploring life, their own way of communicating, interpreting things. So really at the end of the day, we're humans are a chaotic being, right? And how we deal with that chaos is reflective of, what I also call self-sentience. Self-sentience is our ability to recognise ourselves and how we see ourselves outwardly. Unfortunately, there is some dumb fucks in the world, right? There's some people that have no responsibility for, how they see things and their behaviours. But it comes up that big word, responsibility. I see it different than everyone else. It has a real negative connotation of what your responsibilities are based on how society judges your skill sets, your significance of what you're doing. And that word of being responsible is really, you're responding to your abilities in life, right? And how anyone can judge you for doing something beyond your ability, I think that's part of the problem with the world at the moment. We're all judged, but we're all judged unfairly. And the system's currently broken, and I think we have to look at new ways how the system works. And really, I think the thing that's missing or most broken in the system is we suppressed human creativity. And human creativity, when it goes along being suppressed, it just entertains fear and holds everyone trapped in fear, rather than allowing individual to actually explore their own creativity, their own nuances, and to go and explore life and the experience that brings.
Life brings, So what brings you, what brings you the most joy? Because, guys, I just want to let you know, when you're around Jeff, his eyes really tell a story, and you probably see it from the other camera. But when you jump into pure joy, something happens to the room, and you really have this ability to shift energy around. So it's like, what's the thing that brings you the most joy?
Is it probably, I'll call it, one of my favourite words, symbiosis.
Symbiosis,
right? Right. When I see energy coming together, like, how it collectively groups together and how that involves people and ideas and a lot of different energy essences, I love that bit. That's what I live for. My intent is to bring that symbiosis, right? That interconnection, a cohesive approach to all the stakeholders involved in something, just seeing that harmony or unity. Obviously, everyone talks about unity in a lot of that woke community, but I haven't really talked to many people that understand how do you realise unity. It's a common thread that everyone within that woken community wants to get to unity, but how?
How, yeah.
And, what is the interconnecting bits to it? We're creators, right? So if you can create, you're creating energy. I always look at a battery as a good way to sum up when I look at life, and we're stuck in polarity as human beings. We're influenced by what I call masters of limitation. That whether it be the people that helped evolve humanity, all these different external elements that could be seen as, with movies such as The Matrix and things like that they propose these concepts as limitation. So how do we avoid limitation? And it's really like when we understand the essence of our energy and essence of creating, all of a sudden we can move beyond that noise. And so when I come back to the concept of a battery, we look at a battery, there's a duality or a polarity between the negative end and the positive end. Those two polarities form an energy. And we know we put that battery in a torch, we hit the on button, you get light coming out of the torch. But when we look at that battery and say the energy that comes out of it, we're not focused on the negative end of the battery or the positive end. But in human life in general, most people succumb to either being a positive aspect of life or a negative aspect of life. We never take a step back and take a satellite view. Now, if we look at the battery, we see a battery for what it is. It's just stored energy, we put it into a device and we get energy out from it. Well, humans are pretty much identical. We're all energy. And so when we understand that, when our focus is on being overly positive or overly negative, you're just in this merry-go-round. You're never going to get off the merry-go-round because you're never going to move outside of that concept of polarity. But when you do take a satellite view of it, then you can stand back and see a different aspect. You can start to see the intent behind that energy, or where you can shift that energy into how it can affect your life and influence things in your life as well.
Yeah, and on that, you know, I guess, you know, you definitely see, you know, where the world's going, and you know, we're in these real muddy waters, you know, all over the world at the moment, and you know, what I guess I've got two more questions. One is individually, what is it like? You know, let's say you're in your lounge room or you're driving your car or whatever, and yeah, you can feel these muddy waters that everyone's feeling, and you listen to this podcast, and it's like, you know, what is it, do you believe, that people need to do at the moment and I really think whatever you're going to say is really going to hit home for a lot of people, but what's the thing that people not need to do, but if they want to fucking enjoy the rest of their life, like, what the fuck is it? Like, what do we all need to do?
What are we searching for?
Yeah. And like, what do we need to do in this moment? How do we, what do we need to access?
Well, I look at it, if you take creativity at the highest level, you end up in the creator concept, or even what we perceive as gods. And I think what humanity hasn't realised, we're actually all individual gods. Yeah. We all have the ability to create. You choose what you want to create. We've all given a blank canvas in life. And, you know, people say, yeah, I'm born into this situation, I've had this trauma. Okay, these are all experiences your higher self wanted to experience. So I look at life as being whatever cards you've been dealt with. You look at that and it's still a blank canvas of what you do. We get to paint our own canvas of what we want to do in life. And, you know, most unfortunately, society creates these excuses as to why we can't do that. And I'm just not one on excuses, right? I fucking hate excuses, right? Because to me, it's just you're suppressing your potential and come out with the easy option out. And it's hard. It's not easy sometimes creating a new aspect for yourself in life. And to me, if I come back to that original intent, what was it? You know, it's here say what it is, and obviously, you know, they say humanity was created as a reflection of that prime creator. And what was that initial intent of that prime creator? Was to explore potential. If you're going to explore potential, we each one of us has our own version of what that potential is we're trying to explore. What I've learned in life myself individually is that I look for joy, I look for happiness. To me, that's a critical part of my life. It mightn't necessitate that's what someone else is looking for. But what I have learned over the years is what I call a congruence of commonality. In other words, we look at fact and what drives fact. It's not necessarily that it's what truth is, but the more people that believe in one particular area, then it becomes a fact. And I think it's quite interesting at the moment, you look at social media and these fact checkers and all this stuff, right? You think there's a contradiction at the moment in the world about what an expert is. And really the mainstream media is pushing their concept of the experts, and unfortunately a lot of their experts are just the paid for scientific shrills. Then you get the real people that are doing the real fundamental science with no benefit for themselves. So which one do we hold in a higher acclaim? Which one's the higher level of expert? So the world's completely confused at the moment as far as what was once deemed as experts that we would never question. These experts are now being questioned. So we're living in an absolute clusterfuck of chaos at the moment. No one knows any answers. And really, it's up to humanity. How are we going to form a congruence out of this? And it's scary what we're seeing here in Melbourne at the moment, right? You know, but the reality is, it's also a huge opportunity for us to look at collectively, what do we all want? What's the congruence or that collective thing that all humanity is searching for at the moment, right? We're indoctrinated to money, you know, to live our lives, and then all these things suppress our happiness and suppress our joy. And so is it joy, is it happiness that brings the highest virtue to human? So to me, it's about human nobility. And what is the virtue associated with human nobility? To me, it's happiness and joy. Yeah. So that's what I seek. Does everyone else seek that? Maybe not, but we've got to find that way to find that collective congruence that we're all trying to achieve the same thing. And I think the ultimate goal is maybe unity. And if it's unity, what's the single human emotion that draws everyone together? Is it happiness? Is it joy? I don't know.
Love it, man. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're sitting in your car and you heard that, it's you know, definitely. And you know what, the biggest thing is people hear that and I'm sure that, you know, they can see and they can, you know, words have a vibration, as you say, you know, and you really, there's so many times you hear things that you should do, and then you get intuitive guidance to do it, but then, you know, you fucking don't. And it's just like, it is like, I really, whoever's listening or watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening or watching this, it's like, you know, I really, you know, you've got the opportunity to listen to a very wise man who's done a lot of inner work and has definitely been to the absolute depths of despair, but you definitely experienced all the lows and all the highs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really good opportunity for us guys to listen to a guy that's literally scraped all his insides and come out with some you know, real magic for us. So thanks, Jeff, for jumping on the bullshit machine.
Yeah.
And mate, absolute honour to have you on.
No, thanks. And look, just one thing I always like to share and something to place hate into people's minds is just, if every human focus on what their intent in life is, you know, if you each individually work on coming up with a singular intent in life and then just stand steadfast in that, you'll find your life changes very quickly, and you'll find everything will start to fall into place around that intent.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff.
No,
mate, I'd love to hug you, but fucking COVID. But yeah, cool. Awesome, mate. Thank you so much.
No way.
Guys, see you later.
Thanks,
Jeff Lang. Yeah. Awesome, bro.